Hi, I'm Chris Walsh for CUE here at Palm Springs, California, CUE 2016, and we are fortunate enough to sit down with Commissioner Rosenworcel from the FCC. Thank you for joining us here at CUE.
Thank you for having me.
And you just got through with a few remarks here to the CUE conference, which I want to come back to. But I think before that, I'd love to hear your thoughts on just sort of connecting FCC's role to education, because a lot of people don't know how active and important role the FCC plays in education in the U.S.
Well, thank you. That's a good question. The FCC is the Federal Communications Commission, and communications is a part of everything we do now. As we enter the digital age, I think the FCC plays a really big role in every aspect of civic and commercial life, and that includes education. But with respect to education, there's something very specific that we do. We run the nation's largest education technology program. Most people don't know that. They probably think it's at the Department of Education.
They might know that little tax, but not on their phone bill, but they don't know where it goes, right?
Right, so it is the program that we run is best known as E-Rate. And E-Rate has been around since 1996 and is designed to connect all of our schools and all of our libraries to high-speed service and the internet. And it's pretty neat because if you think about 1996,
I was a teacher in 1996 without connectivity, so I was part of the first net days and all that. We had parents go in and wire the schools, you know.
So let's give Congress credit. 1996, we were all calling the internet the information superhighway. And they saw that maybe there was something out there that this new network needed to be a part of education. And so the FCC set up a program in 1996 to connect our schools. And what I found when I got to the agency was that that program hadn't been all that much updated. So here we were in the new millennium. Broadband's the thing. We talk about gigabit speeds. And we had the nation's largest education technology program stranded in the era just after dial-up. So worked very hard with my colleagues, and I'm very proud that we updated that program, brought it into the digital age. We increased the money that we spent on it. So annually now, there's nearly $4 billion that's available for schools and libraries. And we put a real premium on high-speed service and Wi-Fi in all of our schools.
And now, is it true that still a lot of schools and districts don't take advantage of that? That there's still a large part of that money that goes unused?
Well, generally with the E-Rate program, we found that demand is either at supply or exceeds supply.
Okay.
So we do get a lot of demand. But I sometimes do worry that not every school that's eligible could apply. Because let's admit it, programs like this, they're kind of bureaucratic.
Well, they take time. I've applied for many E-Rate grants. It takes time and effort.
And they probably involve paperwork, even though this is a program from the digital age. So we did make an effort to streamline the program in our most recent reforms. But honestly, I think we have to keep on streamlining it further because we want to make sure that the schools that need this connectivity support the most aren't discouraged from applying.
And there are some schools, districts, especially Title I schools, right, that this is their only way to get internet and broadband into the school. I mean, there'd be no other funding for that otherwise.
Absolutely. I mean, try to imagine education today without internet connectivity in a school. I mean, you'd be taking all of the changes that are happening in our lives all around us and having them stop at the school door. It's really important.
Yeah. So now I know you've been working on some, the education you're very passionate about, and you're working on some new initiatives as well that you just talked about here at CUE. Tell us a little bit about that.
Right. So I just got the opportunity to talk about the homework gap. And let me explain what that is. There's data that suggests that 7 in 10 teachers now assign homework that requires access to the internet. But there's data at the FCC that show that 1 in 3 households don't subscribe to broadband. So if you think about where those numbers overlap, what you have is a homework gap. You've got kids in households who need access to the internet to do their homework who don't have it. And we need to figure out how to bridge that gap and close that divide.
And kids are going to great extremes to bridge that gap on their own.
Right,
You had some stories about that?
Yeah. Just last month, the New York Times ran a front page story describing a community in McAllen, Texas, and a brother and sister who stood every night on a crumbling patch of sidewalk just to be able to get a wireless signal from the elementary school across the street.
So because they couldn't get into the school, it's closed, right? And there's no other internet access there.
And that was their free way of getting the signal they needed to download their math assignments and do their homework. And credit to those kids, right? They're
Yeah,
cobbling together whatever
totally. Yeah,
connectivity they
the
can.
grit.
It is not easy.
Hmm.
And, there's a lot of data to suggest that grit's a good thing.
Hmm.
But I think we need to make it easier for kids to do our homework.
So what are some of the solutions you think we need to put in place to do that?
Okay, well, there's a bunch of them. Like any education problem, it's gonna take more than a
Hmm.
few steps. First, I think the FCC needs to update one of its other programs. It's a program called Lifeline. And Lifeline got its start in 1985 when President Reagan was in the White House. And if you recall, at that point, communications generally involved
Hmm.
something with a cord.
Hmm.
Today, it supports voice telephony in low-income households all across this country. In fact, 13 million of them. Now the challenge is, can we update or modernize that program so that instead of just supporting voice service, we give them a choice?
Hmm.
Maybe what if it could support broadband or data access
Hmm.
instead? And if we just built that choice into the program, which is really a simple way to modernize it, we could be on the cusp of making sure more low-income households get access to broadband, and in particular, more low-income households with school-aged children get access to broadband. And I think that's important and worth the fight and worth the effort.
So that's one program. Any others?
Yeah, other ideas. I think we need more Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Free and open Wi-Fi.
Absolutely, absolutely. Zoning our skies for mobile broadband use is complicated,
Hmm.
but we've got more places that we should devote to unlicensed spectrum so we have more Wi-Fi. And I think that's really important because it democratizes internet access, helps kids do their schoolwork, and it also creates places for permissionless innovation, which I think is important for our economy.
So all of these things, I think, obviously support learning, lifelong learning, not just school-age learning, right? Support innovation. I'm wondering what your thoughts are in how important that is in the global economy that we live in today. In particular, we've got countries, Seoul, Korea, is a great example where the broadband is tremendous right there, and other places around the world. Do you think that truly spurs innovation, and are we catching up at this point, or are we trying to go beyond that?
Well, I think we've got work to do. It's kind of trite to say this, but it's true. The world's flat,
Hmm.
and knowledge, jobs, and capital are going to flow to those places that are more connected. So I think the United States, its schools and its students should be among the most connected. We're going to have to find ways to do that.
And how do we balance that with security and privacy? That always comes up, right, for the FCC, but for everybody with communications in particular.
Yeah, as we move to a world where more people are connected and more things are connected with the Internet of Things, we are going to have to address new challenges in security and privacy, and that's particularly important with school. But I think we have to think about how to get everyone connected. And the fact that we're going to have challenges with privacy and security doesn't excuse us from the task of getting everyone connected.
I agree. That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining us here at CUE. I know that we're excited to have your voice as an advocate for our kids, and I can't thank you enough for stopping by and talking with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. All right. For everybody here at CUE 2016, I'm Chris Walsh. We'll see you soon.